Most bug-out bags fail the first night out. The gear looks good in the box. It breaks when it matters. These are 43 field-tested products that experienced preppers actually stake their lives on. The exact specs, the exact brands, the exact reasons cheap alternatives break when you need them most. And it starts with the blade that begins every serious loadout. The ESEE Laser Strike, full tang, 1095 carbon steel, hardened to 57 on the Rockwell scale, 6.4 ounces. This is the fixed blade every serious prepper I know has switched to, and there's a specific reason why. Most people buy a hollow handle survival knife. You've seen them. Smith & Wesson, M-Tech, Tac Force. They look tactical. They've got a little compartment in the handle for matches or a fishing kit, and they snap. Every single time, the hollow handle weakens the tang. That's the steel that runs from the blade into the handle. When you baton wood, which you will, that junction between blade and handle takes all the force. A hollow handle knife concentrates stress at the weakest point. I've watched 2 of them break on camera during controlled batoning tests. One snapped on a 4-inch diameter oak round. The other didn't even make it through pine. The ESEE Laser Strike is a different animal entirely. Full tang means the steel runs the entire length of the handle. There's no junction. There's no weak point. You're gripping the blade itself, with scales bolted on for comfort. 1095 carbon steel is the industry standard for hard-use field knives because it takes abuse, holds a working edge, and resharpens on a river rock if that's all you've got. The Laser Strike gives you a 4.75-inch blade, flat ground, handles everything from batoning firewood to processing game to carving feather, sticks for fire starting. The sheath is molded with a ferro rod slot and a built-in striker on the spine of the blade. You've got fire starting integrated into your primary cutting tool. No extra gear to fumble with. And here's where ESEE separates from every other knife company on the market. Lifetime warranty. No questions asked. You break it, they replace it. You lose it, they replace it. You abuse it beyond recognition, they replace it. That's not marketing language. That's a policy they've honored for over a decade. You're looking at $115 to $130. Compare that to $20 to $40 for a hollow handle knife that breaks on its first real task. You're not paying for a brand name. You're paying for a blade that outlasts you. I've put together a guide on building a serious loadout from scratch, written for when you've got no signal and no Wi-Fi to look things up. Your blade's handled. Now you need water. The Sawyer Squeeze water filtration system, 0.1 micron absolute filtration. EPA tested, 100,000 gallon rated capacity. 3 ounces, $35. This is the most important specification in your entire bag, and most people get it dangerously wrong. Here's what happens on Amazon. You search survival water filter. You get dozens of filter straws from brands you've never heard of. They all claim 99.999% bacteria removal. 5 stars. Thousands of reviews. And not one of them has published third-party EPA testing data. That's the difference between a marketing claim and a verified specification. The EPA testing protocol requires independent laboratory validation of filtration rates under controlled conditions. The Sawyer Squeeze has that documentation publicly available. Those Amazon straws don't. You're betting your hydration and potentially your life on a company's self-reported claim. The Sawyer Squeeze filters to 0.1 micron absolute. That means every single pore in the filter membrane is 0.1 microns or smaller. No bacteria, no protozoa. Nothing larger than 0.1 microns gets through. The rated capacity is 100,000 gallons. You will never filter that much water in your lifetime. It's effectively infinite. And unlike the Sawyer Mini, which a lot of preppers carry because it's lighter, the Squeeze doesn't suffer from the same flow rate degradation. The Mini's smaller for filter area clogs faster. After a few hundred liters, you're squeezing hard for a trickle. The Squeeze maintains usable flow rates because the filter surface area is larger. It's back-flushable, which means when flow rates do drop, you push clean water through the filter in reverse, and you're back to full performance. 3 ounces. That's less than most people's phone case weighs. You thread it onto a standard 28mm water bottle mouth. Squeeze and drink. The pouches it ships with are lightweight, but experienced preppers pair it with a Nalgene for durability. At $35 with published EPA test results, you're getting verified filtration. Not a marketing promise, not an Amazon star rating. Verified? Now your water's covered. But water and a blade don't help if you can't communicate. The Tidradio H8 dual band radio, 8 watts output, FCC Part 90 type accepted, USB-C charging. And this is where you need to understand why the most popular prepper radio on the market is actually a liability. The Baofeng UV5R. You've seen it in every bug-out bag video. Every prepper forum recommends it. It's $25, and it's not FCC compliant. The FCC has issued specific enforcement actions against Baofeng models. Part 90 type acceptance means the radio has been independently tested and certified to meet FCC standards for power output, spurious emissions, and frequency stability. The Baofeng UV5R does not carry that certification. Beyond compliance, the performance gap is real. The Baofeng advertises 8 watts, but independent testing consistently shows 4 to 5 watts actual output. The Tidradio H8 delivers a true 8 watts. In radio communication, that power difference translates directly to range. Double the wattage doesn't mean double the range, but it means meaningfully better signal penetration through buildings, terrain, and foliage, which is exactly the environment you're operating in during an evacuation. Then there's charging. The Baofeng uses a proprietary charging cradle. It's a plastic dock that requires a wall outlet. In a grid-down scenario, that cradle is useless. The Tidradio H8 charges via USB-C, the same cable that charges your phone, your power bank, your headlamp. One cable, one charging ecosystem. You're looking at $40 to $50 for the Tidradio versus $25 for the Baofeng. That extra $15 to $25 buys you legal compliance, verified 8-watt output, and USB-C charging that actually works when the grid fails. The H8 also offers dual band operation across VHF and UHF frequencies, giving you access to both GMRS and amateur bands. If you haven't gotten your ham license yet, that's a separate conversation, but the radio's ready when you are. Shelter is your next survival system. The SOL Escape Bivvy. This is your emergency shelter layer, and it replaces the single worst piece of gear in the prepper world, the mylar space blanket. You've seen them. Silver, crinkly, marketed as reflecting 90% of body heat. Here's what they don't tell you. Mylar space blankets trap condensation. Your body produces moisture through sweat and respiration. A non-breathable mylar sheet traps that moisture against your skin. In cold conditions, you get wet. Wet plus cold equals hypothermia. The thing designed to save your life accelerates the problem that kills you. They also shred. One branch snag, one rough ground surface, and you're holding confetti. The SOL Escape Bivvy is a breathable emergency shelter. It reflects body heat like mylar, but allows water vapor to pass through the material. You stay warm without getting soaked in your own sweat. It's large enough to climb inside, fully clothed with your boots on. 8.5 ounces. Packs down to the size of a Nalgene bottle, under $40. This isn't your primary shelter. That's coming. This is your backup, your insurance policy. The layer that keeps you alive if your tarp goes down or you can't build a proper shelter before dark. Your power system matters more than most preppers realize. The Nitecore NB10000 Gen 2 power bank, 10,000 milliamp hours, carbon fiber composite shell, 6.3 ounces. Here's what you need to understand about power banks. The number on the label is a lie. A 10,000 milliamp hour bank doesn't deliver 10,000 milliamp hours to your device. Voltage conversion from the internal 3.7 volt cell to the 5 volt USB output creates a loss of 20 to 35%. Your 10,000 milliamp hour bank delivers roughly 6,500 to 8,000 usable milliamp hours. That's enough for 1.5 to 2 full phone charges. The Nitecore NB100 earns its place over every competitor for one reason: durability per ounce. The carbon fiber composite shell survives drops and impacts that crack the plastic housings on anchor and RAV power units. At 6.3 ounces, it's the lightest 10,000 milliamp hour bank with a protective shell you can buy. USB-C input and output at 20 watts means fast charging both directions. You charge the bank fast. It charges your devices fast. In a bug-out scenario, speed matters because you may have limited access to power sources. Now pay attention to this one. Number 36 tarred bank line, 200 feet, 6 ounces, under $10. This is the cordage that makes 550 paracord obsolete, and 90% of preppers have never heard of it. Every bug-out bag video tells you to pack paracord. It's become gospel, and it's wrong. Not because paracord is bad. It's genuinely strong cord, 550 pounds of breaking strength. But you don't need 550 pounds of breaking strength to tie a tarp ridgeline, lash a shelter frame, hang a bear bag, or secure gear to your pack. You need about 300 pounds. Bankline gives you 320. Here's where the math kills paracord. 200 feet of number 36 tarred bankline weighs approximately 6 ounces and costs under $10. 50 feet of paracord weighs a similar amount and costs more. You're getting 4 times the length at equivalent weight. The tar coating is the real advantage. Tar creates friction on fiber surfaces. When you tie a knot in tarred bankline, it bites, it holds. You don't need extra wraps or backup knots. Paracord is smooth nylon. Knots slip under load unless you add additional securing knots. For shelter building, gear lashing, trap construction, clothesline, fishing line from the inner strands, and any general tying task in a bug-out scenario, bankline outperforms paracord on every metric that matters: weight per foot, knot security, and cost per length. The Army Survival Manual, FM 21-76, covers lashing and shelter construction extensively. Every technique in that manual works better with cordage that holds knots under load. Bankline does. Paracord fights you. Your cordage is squared away. Now you need a light that actually performs. The Fenix PD36R Pro, 1600 lumens sustained, not peak, sustained. USB-C rechargeable, 21700 battery, IP68 waterproof rated. This is where the flashlight industry lies to you, and you need to understand the lie. Every Amazon flashlight advertises lumens, 1000 lumens, 2000 lumens, 5000 lumens. Those are peak numbers, measured at the instant you click the light on. Within 30 seconds to 2 minutes, thermal management kicks in and the light throttles down to prevent the LED from burning out. That 1000 lumen Amazon light, it's putting out 150 to 200 lumens after 30 seconds. That's the actual usable output. Total runtime at the advertised brightness is often under 45 minutes. The ANSI FL1 standard measures sustained output. That's the output the light maintains over time after thermal stabilization. The Fenix PD36R Pro sustains 1600 lumens for over an hour on the regulated high setting. That's not a peak number. That's what you get after the light stabilizes for over 60 minutes. The 21700 lithium-ion battery is rechargeable via USB-C. Same cable as your radio, your power bank, your phone. One ecosystem. IP68 means this light is submersible, not splash resistant. Submersible. You're looking at about $90 to $100. Compare that to $20 to $30 for an Amazon light that delivers 1/10 the sustained output. You're paying for engineering, thermal management, and a light that performs when the specs say it performs. When gear fails, your body's next. The Adventure Medical Kit's Trauma Pack with QuikClot. This is your baseline trauma medical kit, and it fills a gap that most first aid kits pretend doesn't exist. Hemorrhage. The standard first aid kit you buy at the pharmacy has bandages, gauze pads, antiseptic wipes, and maybe some ibuprofen. That kit treats cuts and scrapes. In a bug-out scenario, you're moving through rough terrain, using blades, processing firewood, potentially encountering debris from structural damage. The injury profile changes. The trauma pack includes QuikClot hemostatic gauze. QuikClot contains kaolin, a mineral that accelerates your blood's natural clotting cascade. You pack it directly into a wound and apply pressure. Bleeding slows dramatically. The kit also includes a trauma pad, nitrile gloves, and wound closure strips. It's not a complete IFAK. It's the minimum viable trauma response. About $20 to $25, under 4 ounces, fits in a cargo pocket. This is the kit that bridges the gap between a Band-Aid kit and the advanced medical components coming later in this loadout. Shelter is a system, not a single item. The Aqua Quest Guide Tarp, 10 by 7 feet, silicone-coated 70 denier ripstop nylon, 20,000 millimeter waterhead rating, 14 ounces. This is your overhead cover. Paired with the ESEE Escape Bivvy, you now have a complete 2-layer shelter system for under $120 and under 2.2 pounds combined. Cheap tarps delaminate. That's when the waterproof coating separates from the fabric after months of storage. You open your bag after a year, and your tarp is a sticky, flaking mess. The Aqua Quest uses silicone impregnation, not surface coating. The waterproofing is bonded into the fabric structure. 20,000 millimeter waterhead means this tarp handles sustained heavy rain without leaking through. 14 reinforced tie-out points give you dozens of pitch configurations. A frame, lean-to, diamond-fly, open-wall shelter. Your bank line connects to those tie-outs. The tarp goes overhead, the bivvy goes underneath. You're sheltered from rain, wind, and ground moisture. Total system weight, 2.2 pounds. Your backup blade matters. The Victorinox Swiss Army Farmer, 3.5 ounces, Alloc scales. This is your multi-tool, and it replaces the heavy Leatherman models that most people default to. A Leatherman Wave weighs 8.5 ounces. The Farmer gives you a large blade, a can opener, a bottle opener, an awl, a wood saw, and a reamer at less than half that weight. You're not carrying a primary multi-tool. You already have the ESEE for heavy cutting. You have the bank line for lashing. The Farmer fills the gaps, opening cans, sawing small notches, punching holes in leather or fabric with the awl. At 3.5 ounces, the weight penalty is negligible. This next one could save your life, and the counterfeit version could cost it. The North American Rescue Cat Tourniquet Gen 7. This is the standard issue tourniquet for the United States military. TCC recommend. TCC listed. And it's the most counterfeited piece of medical gear on the market. Here's the problem. You search cat tourniquet on Amazon. You find listings at $8 to $15. The genuine article costs around $30 from authorized retailers. Those cheap listings are counterfeits. They look identical. The packaging is nearly perfect, but the windlass, the rod you twist to tighten the tourniquet and stop arterial bleeding, is made from inferior material. Under tension, it snaps. This isn't theoretical. This has been documented in testing by medical professionals and in field reports. A tourniquet that fails under tension is worse than no tourniquet at all because you waste critical seconds discovering the failure, then have nothing to fall back on. The genuine Narcat Gen 7 uses a reinforced aluminum windlass with a stabilization plate. You twist it, it locks, it holds, arterial bleeding stops. You buy this from North American Rescue directly or from verified medical supply distributors. Never Amazon, never eBay, never a listing that seems too cheap. $30. That's the price of a tourniquet that functions when someone's bleeding out. The TCC guidelines, which are the Tactical Combat Casualty Care protocols used by every branch of the military, mandate a minimum of 2 tourniquets in every individual first aid kit. You're getting the first one now. The second is coming later in this loadout. Quick note on field documentation. Write in the Rain Notebook, number 935, waterproof paper. Writes in any condition with any writing instrument. When you need to record coordinates, leave notes at a cache, document injuries for medical handoff, or mark a route, regular paper turns to mush. This doesn't. Pocket-sized, under $5. It goes in and it stays. Your power system needs depth for extended operations. The BioLite Charge 40 PD power bank, 40,000 milliamp hours. USB-C power delivery. If you're running a radio, a GPS device, a headlamp, and a phone, the Nitecore NB10000 runs dry fast. The BioLite gives you roughly 26,000 usable milliamp hours after conversion losses. That's 6 to 8 full phone charges, multiple radio charges, and headlamp top-offs. It's heavier, about 20 ounces. That's the trade-off. But if your scenario involves more than 72 hours, or you're supporting communication devices that are genuinely critical, this weight earns its place. USB-C PD means 30-watt charging speeds. Your devices charge faster. The bank recharges faster from solar panels or vehicle outlets when available. The $75 knife that goes toe-to-toe with knives at twice the price. The Mora Garberg Carbon, full tang, 14C28N carbon steel, hardened to 59 to 60 on the Rockwell scale. That's harder than the ESEE 1095. Scandi grind. Here's why this knife matters in this loadout and why it matters to your wallet. Most preppers assume a quality full-tang fixed blade costs over $100. The ESEE Laser Strike, which you already have, runs $115 to $130. It earns that price. But the Mora Garberg delivers 90% of that performance at 40% of the cost. The 14C28N steel is a Sandvik composition that holds an edge longer than 1095. The higher Rockwell hardness means more resistance to deformation under cutting tasks. The Scandi grind is the easiest edge geometry to sharpen in the field. You lay the bevel flat on a stone and stroke. No angle guessing, no jig, no experience required. $75 to $85 for a blade that matches knives at 130 and above on edge retention and field maintenance. This is your secondary blade. Your ESEE is your primary workhorse. The Garberg is your backup, your loner, your detail knife. And if you're building your first bag on a budget, the Garberg alone is a legitimate primary blade. Stop here. Let's talk about something that 90% of preppers get wrong, and it's not even a piece of gear, it's a piece of rope. The paracord myth is one of the most persistent bad ideas in the preparedness community. Every forum, every YouTube video, every gear list defaults to 550 paracord as the required cordage. It's tradition, not specification. Here's the reality. 550 paracord gives you 550 pounds of braking strength. For what task in a bug-out scenario do you need 550 pounds? Tarp ridge lines? Shelter lashing, bare bag suspension? Gear securing? None of those tasks approach even half that braking strength requirement. You're carrying overkill and paying for it in weight and volume. Number 36 tarred bank line gives you 320 pounds of braking strength, which exceeds every real-world cordage requirement in a 72-hour evacuation loadout. It holds knots better because of the tar coating. It's cheaper per foot. And you get 4 times the length at equivalent weight. The lesson here isn't just about cordage. It's about questioning every assumption in your bag. Several items ahead will challenge beliefs you didn't know you held. Are your batteries actually going to work when you open that bag in 3 years? Is your food creating a water problem? Is your lighting system missing an entire category? Pay attention. Auxiliary power for movement. The Anker 621 magnetic battery MagGo, 5,000 milliamp hours, snaps to the back of your phone magnetically. No cable. You're walking, navigating, checking your map application, and your phone is charging. No cable management, no fumbling in your pack. This is your on-the-move charging solution, and it fills a gap the larger power banks can't. Your compass is the one tool in this bag with infinite battery life, the Suunto A-30 baseplate compass. Liquid-filled capsule, global needle, clinometer, luminescent markings, 1 ounce. $35, 0 batteries, 0 satellites, 0 infrastructure dependency. Here's the truth about navigation in a bug-out scenario. Every electronic navigation tool you own has a finite operational window. Your phone's GPS drains battery at an accelerated rate. Your dedicated GPS unit runs on batteries that may or may not function after storage. Cell tower-assisted navigation dies when towers go down. The Suunto A-30 works, period. No charging, no signal acquisition, no satellite lock delays. You pull it out, orient the map, take your bearing, and move. FM 3-05.70, the Army Special Forces Survival Manual, covers map and compass navigation as the primary method, not a backup method, primary. Because Special Forces operators understand that electronic navigation fails in exactly the conditions that demand precision navigation. The global needle system means this compass works in both the northern and southern hemispheres without the needle dragging or tilting. The clinometer lets you measure slope angles for terrain assessment. Luminescent markings let you take bearings in low light without a flashlight giving away your position. 1 ounce. Infinite operational life. That's a specification no electronic device can match. Your Sawyer Squeeze filters bacteria and protozoa. It does not remove viruses. The Grayl GeoPress handles what the Sawyer can't. This is your purifier class upgrade. The GeoPress removes viruses, bacteria, protozoa, chemicals, heavy metals, and microplastics, everything. In 8 seconds, you fill the outer bottle from any water source, insert the press, and push down. 24 ounces of purified water in 8 seconds. No squeezing bags. No waiting for chemicals. No worrying about viral contamination from floodwaters, sewage runoff, or compromised municipal sources. The distinction between filtration and purification matters. A filter physically blocks organisms larger than its pore size. The Sawyer's 2.1 micron pores block bacteria and protozoa. Viruses are smaller, they pass through. A purifier uses additional mechanisms, in the Grayl's case an electroadsorptive media, to capture viruses alongside everything else. At 15.9 ounces, the GeoPress is heavier than the Sawyer. That's the trade-off. You carry both. The Sawyer for high-volume daily hydration from relatively clean sources. The GeoPress for questionable sources where viral contamination is possible. Together, they cover every waterborne threat you'll encounter. About $90 for full-spectrum water purification. The item every experienced prepper packs and no casual buyer considers. Hestra Ergo Grip, active wool liner gloves. Merino wool, 2 ounces per pair, full dexterity. Here's what happens when your hands get cold. Fine motor skills degrade. You can't operate a compass. You can't strike a ferro rod. You can't tie knots. You can't load a magazine. Your hands are the interface between you and every tool in your bag. When that interface fails, your tools become useless. Most people pack synthetic or cotton work gloves. If they pack gloves at all, cotton loses all insulating value when wet. Synthetic gloves lose most of theirs. Wool retains approximately 80% of its insulation value when wet. 80%. That means your hands stay functional in rain, sweat, and river crossings. The Hestra merino liners give you full dexterity for precision tasks. You're operating your radio, your compass, your ferro rod, your knife, all with gloves on. 2 ounces. They compress to nothing in your pack, about $40 to $50. This is the difference between capable hands and useless hands in cold or wet conditions. Your backup EDC flashlight fills the gap when your pack comes off. The Surefire Stiletto Pro. Flat body. Pocket clip. Here's the scenario. You set your pack down at camp, you walk 50 yards to collect water or firewood, and you need light. Your Fenix PD36R is in the pack. The Stiletto Pro is in your pocket because it's flat. It doesn't roll off surfaces. It clips securely. It runs on a built-in rechargeable cell with a micro USB port. 1000 lumens on high, 15 lumens on low for extended runtime. This is your always-on body light, the light that goes where you go, regardless of where your pack is. Everything you've packed so far rides in this. The Kelty Red Wing 32 Tactical, 32 liters, 2 pounds 12 ounces, and this is where pack selection either makes or breaks your loadout over distance. Most preppers make one of 2 mistakes. They buy a massive 60-liter pack because more space seems better, or they buy a cheap 40-liter bag from Amazon with no frame and no hip belt. Both choices punish you. A 60-liter frameless pack at 35 pounds puts every ounce on your shoulders. After 5 miles, your shoulders are burning. After 10, you're adjusting straps constantly. After 20, you're in pain and slowing down. The Kelty Red Wing 32 uses a suspended back panel with a padded hip belt and load lifters. The hip belt transfers weight from your shoulders to your hips, which are structurally designed to carry load. Load lifters pull the top of the pack toward your shoulders, keeping the weight centered over your body rather than pulling you backward. The front-loading U-zip means you access gear without digging from the top. Mole webbing on the exterior lets you attach pouches, the Olantern, or additional gear externally. 32 liters sounds small for a bug-out bag. It's not. When your gear is selected for weight efficiency, the way this entire loadout has been designed, 32 liters is enough. You don't need 60 liters. You need the right 32 liters carried by a pack that distributes the weight properly. About $110 to $130. Here's where you stop and look at what you've built. You've got a primary blade, a secondary blade, a multi-tool, water filtration and purification covering every waterborne threat, communications with an 8-watt FCC-compliant radio, a complete shelter system with tarp and bivvy, fire starting integrated into your primary knife, trauma medical with hemostatic gauze and a tourniquet, navigation with a compass that never dies, primary and backup lighting, power storage for your electronics, 200 feet of cordage, and a pack that carries all of it without destroying your shoulders. That's a functional 72-hour survival kit. Right now, what you've got covers the core survival systems. Everything from here forward is what separates a bag that keeps you alive from a bag that keeps you effective, keeps you mobile, keeps you making good decisions at hour 50 instead of hour 5. If this level of detail is useful, subscribing means you catch the deep dive videos on individual categories. Rain is a when, not an if. The Outdoor Research Helium Rain Jacket. Pertex Shield Fabric. 10,000 millimeter waterhead rating. 6.4 ounces. Most bug-out bag guides tell you to pack a poncho. Ponchos catch wind like a sail. They restrict arm movement. You can't climb, run, scramble, or operate tools effectively in a poncho. The Helium is a full-cut rain jacket with a hood, pit zips for ventilation, and a stuff pocket that compresses to the size of your fist. You maintain full range of motion. Your arms are free. Your torso stays dry. 6.4 ounces means the weight penalty over a poncho is negligible, and the functional advantage is enormous. The lighting category most people don't even know exists in their own bag. The Olight Olantern Mini 2. 150 lumens warm light, 40 hours runtime on low, USB-C rechargeable, hangable and freestanding. Here's the gap in your lighting that you probably haven't thought about. Your Fenix PD36R throws a focused beam. That beam is excellent for navigation, signaling, scanning terrain, and identifying threats. It's useless for area illumination. Cooking at camp requires ambient light so you can see your stove, your pot, and your water container simultaneously. Medical treatment on a wound requires diffused light so you can see the entire injury, not a spotlight on 1 square inch. Map reading requires even soft illumination across the entire map surface. Shelter construction at night requires light that fills the work area, not a beam you have to constantly redirect. The Olantern Mini 2 fills every one of those needs. 150 lumens of warm, diffused light for up to 40 hours on the low setting. That's almost 2 full days of ambient lighting on a single charge. USB-C rechargeable, same ecosystem as your radio, your Fenix, your power banks. You hang it from a tarp ridge line with bank line. You set it on flat ground freestanding, you clip it to your pack. About $40 to $50 for a lighting capability your bag simply does not have without it. No flashlight, no matter how powerful, replaces a lantern. They are different tools for different jobs. Most people don't realize they're missing this until they try to cook in the dark with a headlamp strapped to their forehead and a beam that illuminates a circle 4 inches wide. This one costs $16. It addresses a wound that's 100% fatal without intervention. The North American Rescue Vent Chest Seal Twin Pack, one-way valve, adhesive backing, TCC standard. Here's the medical scenario that most first aid kits completely ignore. A penetrating chest wound, whether from debris, a fall onto a sharp object, or any puncture that enters the chest cavity, can cause a tension pneumothorax. Air enters the chest cavity through the wound but can't escape. Pressure builds, the lung collapses. Without intervention, this is fatal. 100% of the time. A vent chest seal covers the wound with an adhesive barrier. The one-way valve allows trapped air to escape from the chest cavity, but prevents new air from entering through the wound. You peel it, stick it, and the casualty can breathe. The twin pack gives you 2 seals, one for the entry wound, one for the potential exit wound. This is a TCCC standard component. It's in every military EFAC, and it costs $16 for a twin pack, $16 for a device that makes a 100% fatal wound survivable. That's the cost-to-life saved ratio that defines what belongs in a serious medical loadout. If you've gone through a Stop the Bleed course, you've trained on these. If you haven't, take the course. It's free, it's offered nationwide, and it teaches you how to use every medical component in this loadout. Universal water container, the Nalgene wide-mouth 32-ounce, Triton copolyester, virtually indestructible. Threads mismatch the Sawyer Squeeze, so you screw your filter directly onto your water bottle. Fill the bottle, screw on the Sawyer, drink. It also handles boiling water. Pour boiling water in, cap it, put it in your sleeping layer. FM21-76 covers this exact trick. A hot Nalgene in your bivvy adds measurable warmth for hours. $5 to $8. You already own one. If you don't, fix that. Your outdoor multi-tool with integrated fire starting. The Leatherman Signal 420 HC blade. Ferro rod built into the frame. Emergency whistle. Hammer. Saw all. This is the multi-tool designed specifically for outdoor survival, not workshop tasks. Most Leatherman models, the Wave, the Surge, the Charge, are built for mechanics and tradespeople. File, ruler, wire stripper. Useful in a garage, dead weight in the field. The Signal replaces those workshop tools with a ferro rod and a whistle. You've got fire redundancy built into your multi-tool. You've got a signaling device that doesn't require batteries. 7.5 ounces, about $100 to $110. The food that lifeboats carry. Datrex emergency ration bars, 3,600 calories. USC approved. 5-year shelf life, $9. This is the food solution, and it exposes why freeze-dried meals are the wrong answer for a bug-out bag. Freeze-dried meals require water and a stove. In a survival scenario, water is the scarcest resource. Every ounce of water you use for cooking is an ounce you can't drink. Most freeze-dried meals require 2 cups of boiling water per serving. That's 16 ounces of water per meal, plus fuel for the stove, plus time to boil, plus the weight of the stove and fuel canister. Energy bars and granola bars are high in sodium. High sodium intake increases water consumption by 20 to 30%. When you're rationing water, high sodium food works against you. Datrex ration bars are specifically formulated to be non-thirst provoking. The Coast Guard certifies them because they're designed for lifeboat scenarios where water is severely limited. Each bar is a proportioned 200-calorie block. You eat 3 bars per meal, 3 meals per day, for 3 days from a single package. They're vacuum-sealed and waterproof. They survive temperature extremes. They taste like a slightly sweet coconut shortbread. Nobody's raving about the flavor, but nobody's gagging either. $9 for a complete 3-day caloric load that doesn't require water, doesn't require cooking, doesn't increase thirst, and stores for 5 years. Compare that to $30 to $50 for freeze-dried meals that demand water, fuel, a stove, and time you might not have. The math is overwhelming. Multicolor military lighting for a reason. The Streamlight Sidewinder Compact 2 meets MIL STD81G red, blue, green, and white LEDs, angle, head, clip-on or hands-free. Here's why red light matters. White light destroys your night-adapted vision for 20 to 30 minutes. Red light preserves it. When you're navigating at night, checking your map, or moving through camp, red light lets you see what you need to see without blinding yourself. The angle head design means you clip it to a chest strap or belt and aim it downward. Hands-free. You're working, walking, cooking, all with illumination and both hands available. About $50 to $60 for a lighting tool that the military has field-validated under the most demanding conditions. Here's what actually happens during an evacuation. Not theory. Documented reality. After Hurricane Katrina, evacuation corridors out of New Orleans became hours-long gridlocks that extended into days. People who left with nothing to drink ran out of water within 12 hours. People whose stored gear relied on alkaline batteries found corroded battery compartments and dead electronics. People who treated the first 72 hours as a purely physical challenge, shelter, water, food, and ignored psychological management made worse decisions as stress accumulated. The specific gear categories you're about to see in the final stretch of this loadout address exactly these failure modes. Emergency water pouches for the gap before you reach a filterable source. Lithium batteries that don't corrode and destroy your stored electronics. A morale item that sounds frivolous until you understand what 72 hours of unbroken stress does to your judgment. The items in the last stretch of this list aren't theoretical. They're corrections from real events where real people discovered gaps the hard way. Gear waterproofing that actually works. The Sea to Summit Ultra Dry Sack 8 liters, 30 denier siliconized Cordura IPX8 rated. Your spare clothes, your electronics, your medical supplies, anything that can't get wet goes in a dry sack, not a trash bag. Trash bags puncture on the first branch, zipper edge, or rough surface inside your pack. The Sea to Summit rolls down, clips shut, and stays sealed. 2 ounces, about $20. Non-negotiable for protecting critical gear. Repair and blister prevention in 2 ounces. ESEE duct tape, mini rolls, 2-pack. You've heard the advice. Wrap duct tape around a water bottle or a lighter so you always have some. Nobody does this. And even if you do, it's never enough and it's annoying to peel off a curved surface. These are flat mini rolls. They go in a pocket. They're there when you need them. Duct tape repairs torn gear, seals a tarp hole, secures a splint, prevents and treats blisters, marks a trail, patches a boot. 2 ounces, under $5. Your EDC folder saves your fixed blades for heavy work. The Kershaw Leak Model 1660, Sandvik 14 C28N stainless steel, 2.75 ounce, frame lock. This is the knife you use 50 times a day for opening packages, cutting cordage, slicing food, processing small tasks. Every time you draw and resheath a fixed blade for a minor cutting task, you're wearing the sheath, dulling the blade on light work, and adding unnecessary handling. The Leak lives in your pocket. It opens with one hand. It handles the daily work so your ESEE and your Garberg stay sharp for the heavy tasks. Your filter can freeze. Your filter can break. Chemical purification doesn't. Aquamira water treatment drops. Chlorine dioxide. 2-part solution. Treats up to 30 gallons. This is your viral coverage backup and your cold weather failsafe. The Sawyer Squeeze can't remove viruses. It also can't be used if the water inside the filter freezes because ice crystals expand and destroy the hollow fiber membranes. Aquamira covers both gaps. You mix the 2 solutions, wait 5 minutes for activation, add to your water, and wait 15 to 20 minutes. Viruses, bacteria, and protozoa are eliminated. It works at any temperature. It works when your filter breaks. It works when nothing else does. About $15, 1 ounce. Redundancy isn't paranoia, it's engineering. The second tourniquet isn't optional. The Soft W Tourniquet. The TCC guidelines specify a minimum of 2 tourniquets per individual first aid kit. That's not a suggestion. That's the standard used by every military medical protocol in the field. Why 2? Because 1 tourniquet addresses 1 limb. If you have injuries to 2 extremities, or if your first tourniquet application isn't effective and you need to apply a second one above the first, a single tourniquet isn't enough. The Soft W uses a different mechanism than the CAT. It's a flat metal windlass rather than a plastic rod. Some medics prefer it for self-application on the lower extremities. Having 2 different tourniquet designs in your kit also means you have 2 mechanical systems. If one design fails, the other design uses a different mechanism. About $30. This goes in an exterior pouch or pocket, accessible with either hand. The battery swap that stops the #1 cause of gear failure in stored bags. Energizer Industrial AA lithium batteries, 8-pack, 20-year shelf life. Functions to -40 degrees Fahrenheit, 1/3 lighter than alkaline, and 0 leak risk, 0. Here's the failure mode that destroys more bug-out bags than any gear deficiency. Alkaline battery leakage. You pack your bag with a flashlight, a headlamp, and a radio. You store it for 3 years. You open it in an emergency and find a blue-white crust of potassium hydroxide corroding the battery terminals and destroying the electronics. Your flashlight is dead. Your headlamp is dead. Your radio might still work if the leakage didn't reach the circuit board. Alkaline batteries degrade after 5 to 7 years on the shelf. They lose capacity in cold weather, up to 80% below freezing, and they leak. Energizer Industrial lithium cells solve every one of those problems. 20-year shelf life means you put them in and forget them for 2 decades. Full function at -40 degrees means they work in the worst conditions you'll face. 1/3 lighter means less weight in your pack. And 0 leakage means the electronics in your stored bag are safe. About $20 for an 8-pack. That's the cost of protecting every battery-powered device in your loadout for 20 years. Swap every alkaline battery in your bag today, right now. This is the single most impactful thing you can do for the long-term reliability of your kit. Hands-free illumination with a failsafe. The Petzl Actik Core headlamp, 450 lumens. Dual power, rechargeable core battery or 3 AAA batteries, USB-C rechargeable. Here's the single point of failure problem with rechargeable only headlamps. When the battery dies and you have no way to recharge, the headlamp is dead weight. The Actik Core runs on its proprietary rechargeable battery pack. When that dies, you pull it out and drop in 3 AAA batteries. Those Energizer lithium AAs you're carrying, they slot right in. Dual power means your headlamp has a backup. You're not dependent on a single rechargeable cell. 450 lumens on high. Red light mode for night vision preservation. IPX4 water resistance, about $70 to $80. All-weather writing that doesn't require a special notebook. The Countycom Embassy pen in grade 5 titanium. Fisher Space Pen cartridge. Writes in rain, writes in extreme cold, writes upside down, writes on wet paper. The titanium body doubles as an improvised tool. It's not a dedicated tool for any one task, but it's indestructible. It always writes, and it weighs almost nothing. About $45 to $50 for a pen you'll never need to replace. Hot food changes everything. The MSR PocketRocket 2 stove, 2.6 ounces, boils 1 liter in 3.5 minutes. Screw it onto an isobutane canister, light it, and you have a working stove. Yes, your Datrex rations don't require cooking, but hot water means hot coffee, hot soup, or hot oatmeal. After 24 hours of cold, wet, stressful movement, a hot meal doesn't just taste good. It raises core body temperature. It improves morale. It signals to your brain that you're still in control. Under 5 ounces with the canister support. About $50. This isn't a requirement. It's a capability multiplier that adds almost no weight. 20 verified uses from a single 5-ounce piece of cotton. The mil-spec cotton Shema. Under $12. 5 ounces. Here's what replaces. Dust mask, sun protection for head and neck, towel, arm sling, water pre-filter, pot holder, bandage wrap, ground signaling panel, equipment wrap, pillow blindfold for sleeping in daylight, tourniquet improvisation, hobo bundle for carrying supplies, face protection against wind and cold, sweatband, equipment padding, trail marker, charcoal filter wrap, cooling towel when wet, and cordage when twisted into a rope. That's 20 uses from one item. Under $12. Now count how many single-function items in your bag do one of those jobs. a separate dust mask, a separate sun cover, a separate towel, a separate arm sling from your first aid kit. Each one takes up space. Together they weigh 15 or more ounces and do fewer jobs than one Shema. The weight-to-function ratio is unmatched by anything else in this loadout. 5 ounces for 20 functions. That's a quarter of an ounce per capability. No other item in this bag comes close to that efficiency. Insect-borne illness is the slow kill threat nobody includes in evacuation planning. Sawyer permethrin spray, 24 ounces. You spray it on your clothing, your pack, your shelter system. It bonds to fabric and remains effective through 6 washes or 6 weeks of wear. Permethrin kills ticks, mosquitoes, chiggers, and flies on contact. It doesn't just repel them, it kills them. In an evacuation scenario lasting 72 hours or more, you're sleeping outdoors. You're in tick habitat. You're near standing water where mosquitoes breed. Lyme disease, West Nile virus, and Eastern equine encephalitis aren't immediate threats. They're delayed onset threats that compromise you days or weeks after exposure. Permethrin-treated clothing is the military standard for insect protection in the field. Treat your gear before you store it. When you grab the bag, the protection's already active, about $15. This is preventive medicine that weighs nothing once applied. The morale item that most gear lists are too serious to include. The Stanley Classic Flask, 8 ounces stainless steel. Here's where preparedness culture gets in its own way. Every gear list is tactical. Every item is serious. Every recommendation is about survival in the strictest sense. And every list ignores the documented, measurable impact of morale on decision-making under stress. Historical accounts from polar expeditions, mountain rescues, and military survival schools consistently document the same finding. People who had access to small comfort items made better decisions over extended periods of stress. A flask of whiskey, brandy, or whatever you prefer serves 5 verified functions: morale, disinfection in the absence of antiseptic, fire accelerant for emergency fire starting on wet tinder, barter item in a scenario where goods are being traded, and a mild sedative for managing anxiety during prolonged high-stress situations. 5 ounces, under $25. 5 functions. No other item in this bag addresses psychological survival and 72 hours unbroken stress without any psychological management tool degrades decision-making measurably. This isn't frivolous, this is documented. When cell towers go down, and in the exact scenarios that trigger a bug out they will, the Garmin InReach Mini 2 is the only device in this bag that guarantees communication. Iridium satellite network, 100% Earth coverage, 2-way text messaging, SOS beacon connected to the GEOS International Emergency Response Coordination Center, GPS tracking, weather forecasting. This is the most expensive item in the loadout at approximately $400, plus a monthly subscription starting at $15. And it's worth every dollar. Your phone relies on cell towers. Cell towers require power, physical infrastructure, and network backbone. All 3 fail in the disaster scenarios that trigger evacuation. Hurricanes take towers down physically. Earthquakes damage infrastructure. Wildfires burn through utility corridors. Grid failures eliminate power to tower sites. When your phone says no service, the InReach Mini 2 is talking to satellites in orbit. You send a text message to any phone number or email address on Earth. You receive replies. You trigger an SOS that connects to a 24/7 rescue coordination center. You share your GPS location with family or rescue teams. 3.5 ounces. The Iridium network has 66 satellites in low Earth orbit providing pole-to-pole coverage. There is no dead zone. There is no outage scenario. This is the single item in the bag that guarantees you can call for help regardless of what's happened on the ground. If you can afford one premium item, this is it. The hydration gap that no one talks about in the first 24 hours. SOS Food Labs emergency water pouches, 64-pack. Use, approved, 5-year shelf life. Survives -40 to 230 degrees Fahrenheit. Here's the assumption that gets people in trouble. They assume they'll have access to a filterable water source shortly after bugging out. If you're leaving an urban area, you might be on paved roads, highway shoulders, and suburban streets for 12 to 24 hours before you reach any natural water source. Your Sawyer Squeeze is useless without water to filter. Your Grayl GeoPress is useless without water to press. Your Aqua Mira drops are useless without water to treat. For the first 12 to 24 hours, you need water that you already have. Each pouch contains 4.227 fluid ounces of purified water. 12 pouches provide approximately 1 day's minimum hydration. The ESEE approves these for lifeboat provisioning because they survive the temperature extremes of open ocean storage. They're individually sealed and waterproof. You tear one open, drink it, and dispose of the pouch. About 3 pounds for 24 hours of guaranteed hydration. That's 3 pounds to bridge the gap between your door and your first filterable water source. Without this, you're dehydrating during the most physically demanding phase of your evacuation while carrying a filter you can't use yet. This is where this list ends, and it ends where it started. With the blade, the Winkler's Knives 2-belt knife, 80 CRV2 carbon steel, convex grind, handmade in North Carolina. This isn't a correction of a popular mistake. There's no "most people buy this instead" contrast. This is the blade that Special Operations Procurement selects when failure is not an option. The Winkler Knives 2 line has a documented military procurement record. These knives are carried by operators who choose their own gear and choose Winkler. 80 CRV2 is a high-toughness carbon steel that resists chipping and breaking under impact. The convex grind is the most durable edge geometry in existence. Where a flat grind or a hollow grind concentrates force at a thin edge, the convex grind distributes force across a curved bevel. It's harder to sharpen but nearly impossible to chip. Each knife is handmade by a single craftsman. You're not buying a production line product. You're buying a tool made by hands that understand what field failure means and engineer against it. $275 to $325. This is the statement piece. The blade that says you understand that the most critical tool in any loadout is still the blade. The first item in this list was a blade. The last item is a blade. Because everything else in between, every filter, every radio, every shelter component, every medical device, depends on a cutting tool to set up, repair, modify, and maintain. The knife is the foundation. Everything else is built on it. That's 43 items. Every one of them field tested. Every one of them spec verified. Every one of them chosen because the popular alternative fails when it matters. Your bag now covers blade work, water filtration and purification, communication, shelter, fire, food, navigation, trauma medicine, power, lighting, cordage, waterproofing, repair, insect protection, morale, satellite communication, and immediate hydration. This isn't a gear list. It's a system. Every item connects to every other item. The bank line ties the tarp to the trees. The tarp covers the bivvy. The bivvy keeps you warm while the naljan, full of hot water from the MSR stove, radiates heat against your core. I've written a complete breakdown of the system's approach to loadout building, designed for printing so you've got it when there's no signal. If you got value from this, subscribe now because the deep dive videos on individual categories, blades, water systems, medical comms, go into the level of detail that a 43-item overview can't. Drop a comment and tell me which one's already in your bag,